Hi, I hope you're doing well. If you're new here, my name is Khadija and this is my bookshelf tour. So I'm always reorganizing my bookshelf and I just had to reorganize it again because I just bought a few new books. So I figured that I would do a little bookshelf tour. I want to preface this video by saying it doesn't matter if you have 0 physical copies, if you have 300, if you have 500, if you have 5. It doesn't make you more or less of a reader, like the number of physical copies that you own. I read the vast majority of my books on my e-reader and I get the vast majority of my books from my library. And the reason why that is because I just simply cannot afford to buy all the books that I read, all the books that I want to read. So I set a rule for myself, and there are exceptions to this rule, but for the most part, I've stuck to it, where I can only buy a book if I read the book and I absolutely loved it and I absolutely need to have it on my shelf. So most of the books on my shelf are books that I have read and loved. There are a few books on my shelf that I haven't read. There are quite a few books that were gifted to me. I also thrift books. A lot of the books on my shelf are actually thrifted. Anyways, at the end of the day, we are all readers. It doesn't matter how many physical copies we own. It doesn't matter how many special editions we own. And I just wanted to put that out there before I get started because I get it. So first shelf that I want to show you is my Muslim author shelf. I wanted to make a shelf specifically dedicated to Muslim authors because I just think it's a cute idea, and I didn't really have Muslim representation in the books that I read when I was a little girl. So it just makes me really happy that now we have so many options and we have so many amazing books to read by Muslim authors. So this is my little Muslim author shelf. First, we have the Scorched duology. This is a adult fantasy debut duology by Sara Hashem. It is one of my all-time favorite duologies. It's one of my all-time favorite book series. I think about these characters all the time. I think about the ending of The Joseph Crown literally every day, and it's Egyptian inspired. It's got real enemies to lovers, like that kind of enemies to lovers where you genuinely don't know how they are going to end up together. It's delicious. It's so good. Really compelling and interesting characters. I love everything about this duology. I recommend it to everyone who enjoys fantasy, and yeah, I just needed to have these on my shelf. Weavingshaw by heba al-wasity. I have been yapping about this book probably on every social channel. At this point, I feel like I'm just constantly talking about this book, and you know, as I should. This is the first in a trilogy. It is a debut as well, and it is a gothic fantasy. It has everything that I could possibly hope for and dream for in a gothic fantasy. It completely blew me away. I adored it so much that I pre-ordered it because I read it as an ARC in January, and I just knew that I needed to own it. I cannot recommend this book enough, and so far everyone that I know who I recommended it to who read it said they absolutely loved it. So just, this is one of my favorite books of 2026 and probably one of my favorite books ever. I love this book. Okay, and then there's Heir by Sabaa Tahir, and this is actually the deluxe edition. Heir is the first in a duology, kind of like a spin-off of the Ember and the Ashes quartet. If you haven't read the Ember and the Ashes, I highly recommend you read the Ember and the Ashes, but this kind of follows the children of some of the characters in the Ember and the Ashes. It is so well written. It is exactly what I look for in fantasy. I consumed this book. I do need to reread it, especially now that I have this copy, because the second book, Empire, is coming out in September, and I'm so excited. I cannot wait. But yeah, that is Heir by Sabaa Tahir, and I was gifted this for my 25th birthday this year. Then there's All My Rage, also by Sabaa Tahir, and this is a young adult contemporary. It is a standalone. It is one of my favorite books. I don't think I will ever reread it because it was so emotional. It just made me feel so much. It's beautifully written. I recommend it if you are looking to have a book that will make you feel a lot of emotions, a book that will make you cry, but in the best way. I think that people don't talk about this book as much as they should. And we've got the absolutely gorgeous, stunning This Woven Kingdom series. This is set to be 5 books, so I currently have all the books that are currently out, which is This Woven Kingdom, These Infinite Threads, All This Twisted Glory, and Every Spiral of Fate. So I discovered this series last year. I consumed the first 3 books in, I think, 2 days. Like, I literally could not stop reading them. There's just something about Tahir's writing that is so addictive. You just cannot put them down. I recommend these to anyone who enjoys romantic fantasy because this is yearning to the max. If you enjoy yearning, if you enjoy like beautiful flowery writing, I think you will love this series. I love this series so much, and I cannot wait for the final book to release next year. I'm so excited. Love this series. Then there's The Ocean Would Paint Me Blue by zoulfa katouh. I have both of zoulfa katouh's standalones here. So there's The Ocean Would Paint Me Blue and As Long as Lemon Trees Grow. Both of these are standalones. Both of them are young adult contemporary. Both of them made me cry like 500 times. The Ocean Would Paint Me Blue has actually just released in June, so it's a new release. And As Long as the Lemon Trees Grow has been out for a few years now, I think. Both of these are must reads. I recommend them to everyone. I will continue to recommend them over and over and over again. They honestly healed a part of me that I didn't know needed to be healed. Then we have We Hunt the Flame and We Free the Stars. So this is a fantasy, young adult fantasy duology. I read this a couple of years ago and I actually didn't love it. I really wanted to love it. So many people were raving about it, but there was just something missing for me and I couldn't even tell you what exactly it is. The reason why I still have them on my shelf is because they're pretty and to fill up shelf space, but I'm kind of debating if I should give these away. I'm unsure about these. Then there's Love from A to Z by S.K. Ali, and this book honestly means the world to me because it was the first time that I saw myself as a Muslim woman in a romance novel. I love this book. I have read it twice, I think. It just came at the perfect time in my life when I was a teenager and it has a special place in my heart. Then we have The Unnamed by M.S. Masood. This is an indie published book. I received it as a gift. I didn't love it and I am in the minority for this. I know a lot of people did love this. I think that the writing is really lush and really beautiful. I think that the anti-colonial focus of this book, because this is a debut fantasy duology, there is so much potential in M.S. Masood's writing. And as a debut indie author, I think it's amazing that she published this, but it didn't impact me the way that I wanted it to. Don't know if I will unhaul this in the future, but for now, it's staying on my shelf. And we have Aisha at Last, and this is a young adult romance novel written by Uzma Jalaluddin. I read this recently, I think the beginning of this year. It might have been last year. I didn't love it as much as I thought it would. And I might end up unhauling this in the future as well, but for now it is staying on my shelf. Okay, so that was my Muslim author shelf. We're gonna move down to the second shelf on the left. Okay, this shelf is one of my favorites because this is my adult fantasy shelf. I don't think I mentioned it, but I do try to organize the shelves by genres. We've got the Raven Scholar by Antonia Hodgson. It is an epic fantasy. It is the first in a trilogy. I thought it was so well written, so well crafted, and very unique. I actually thrifted this for $2, so that was a steal. But yeah, I really loved this. I can't wait for the sequel. I think it's coming out next year in 2027. So that is the Raven Scholar. I would recommend it to anyone who enjoys epic fantasy. And we have Red City by Marie Lu, and I actually received this as a gift this year as well. I really liked this. This is an adult urban fantasy duology. It is Marie Lu's adult debut as well. I thought it was very brilliantly crafted, but it did feel like a setup book for the sequel. I did really like it though, and I would recommend it. Then there's The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig. This is one of my favorite books, and I'm so excited for the sequel to come out in September this year. I thrifted this as well. This is the first in a duology. It is gothic fantasy. It is peak atmospheric writing. I love Rachel Gillig's writing so much. I haven't really read any other author that mimics the feeling that she gives me in her books, and I will read anything that she writes. Then we've got more Rachel Gillig books, which is One Dark Window and Two Twisted, I cannot get these out, oh my gosh. One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns. I thrifted these as well. Loved the first book, but the second book blew me away. This is a kind of like an adult dark fantasy duology. The second one was incredible. Like, I find that it's very rare that the sequel completely outdoes everything in the first book, but the sequel is what really sold me on this series. Like, the sequel was brilliant. I think it's well worth the hype. She just really knows how to do setting and how to really immerse her readers. But I obviously needed to have all her books on my shelf. And we get to the loves of my life, which is the Bone Season series. These were the new books that I had to reorganize my bookshelf for. I just finished reading this series. End of June, I read Dark Mirror, and literally one of the best books I've ever read in my life. I cannot recommend this series enough. I think this series is just insanely underrated. The Bone Season is a adult fantasy. It is the first in what's set to be a 7-book trilogy. So currently 5 books are out. We've got The Bone Season, The Mime Order, The Song Rising, The Mask Falling, and The Dark Mirror. And the 6th book in the series is publishing February 23rd, I think. So it's the perfect time to start reading them. It is an adult urban fantasy, and it has some of the best world building that I have ever read in my entire life. I've read so many fantasy books, and I just cannot sing enough praise for this series. The romance, I don't have the words. I really don't. If you want to hear me yap about how much I love this series, you can watch my June wrap up, because I can sit here for hours to talk about how much I love this series. But I just absolutely needed to own these books. I actually think it might be my favorite series, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, I love these books so much, and I will be recommending them to everyone for the foreseeable future because I need more people to read it. Yeah, these books are everything, truly. I think this might be the worst book hangover that I've ever been in my entire life. And I don't think that it's ever gonna go away. So if you want to have that kind of experience, read The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. Then we've got my R.F. Kuang books. So this is a signed copy. I got a signed copy when I went to her, let me see if I can find it actually. I got this copy when I went to her catabasis tour, and I have a hardcover of Babel as well. Yeah, this book, I read it when it came out, and I still think about it all the time. I loved everything about it and really resonated with me. I know a lot of people didn't love it, but I personally loved everything about it. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I have actually reread it. I really do think it's a modern classic, and I think it's a must read. Then there's my hardcover copies of The Poppy War. So there's The Poppy War, The Dragon Republic, and The Burning God. The thing is that I know with certainty that I will never reread this series. Like, I can tell you that wholeheartedly. I mean that truly, because I was so traumatized reading this series. I remember I bought them in hardcover because I had gift cards for the bookstore. I've had them for years now. Will I ever reread it? No. The Burning God, traumatizing. And there's my catabasis copy. I wasn't obsessed with this book, but I am keeping it because I actually got it personally signed when I met her. I don't know if you can see that very well, but it says my name with like a little heart. I liked it, but it didn't quite live up to my expectations. Okay, moving on to part of my young adult fantasy shelf. So first I have The Scorpion and the Night Blossom. This was a case of me, like this was an exception book because I saw it at the bookstore and I thought it was so beautiful and I knew nothing about it, and I fell for the pretty book propaganda. So I bought it. And I didn't like it, but because I spent so much money on it, I think I'm just gonna keep it. And it's also just really pretty to look at. But yeah, this is a fantasy duology. This is the first book in the duology. I think if you like C-dramas, you will enjoy this book. It reminded me so much of the C-dramas that I used to watch when I was younger. But unfortunately, there were a lot of things that didn't quite work for me in this book. It is gorgeous, so I'll give her that. Then we have my lovelies, Legendborn. The Legendborn series, Legendborn, Bloodmarked, and Oathbound. I thrifted Legendborn and Bloodmarked, I believe. I recommend this book, this series, to everyone. I actually need to start talking about it more again because I feel like I haven't been talking about it on my socials, and I need people to know how obsessed I am with this series. Like, this is peak urban young adult fantasy to me. Every single one of these books are 5-star material to me. I binge read Legendborn and Bloodmarked, and when Oathbound came out, I could not put it down. I just think that Tracy's writing is phenomenal. I think her storytelling is phenomenal. Watching Bree, our mean girl, grow and learn so much throughout these books is just an incredible experience, and I cannot express how much I love this series. It is my favorite young adult series. I think these are must-reads if you enjoy fantasy. The next book doesn't have a release date yet, but when it does, it is going into my calendar. I've actually reread this series, I think 3 times. Yeah, if you haven't read Legendborn yet, what are you doing? Okay, and then we have A Stage Set for Villains. I received this as a gift this year. This is a young adult, standalone young adults debut novel. If you enjoy fantasy and you're a theater person, I think you will love this book. But even if you're not a theater person, I think you might really like this just because of how unique it is. I didn't predict anything, and this book was getting a lot of hype when it first published, and for good reason. I would recommend this. I thought it was a breath of fresh air, especially in a sea of young adult fantasy that just feels very similar. This was so unique. And of course, we have the Folk of the Year series. So I have The Cruel Prince, The Wicked King, Queen of Nothing, which is the original trilogy. I also have The King of Elfhame novella, and I have The Stolen Heir, which is the spin-off duology in paperback. So the only one I'm missing is The Prisoner's Throne, which is the sequel to The Stolen Heir. I've reread these books so many times. Jude is one of my favorite characters, Jude Duarte, and I just think they're brilliantly written. I feel like with this series, people either love it or hate it. I love the series and I will always recommend it. Then we've got some more of my favorites. So we have the Infernal Devices series. So we've got Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, and Clockwork Princess. I love these covers so much. I bought these brand new actually in March, I want to say, March or April, because I read these books for the first time this year and I loved them so much that I knew I was going to reread them and I knew I needed to own copies of them. Will, Jem, and Tessa will stay with me forever. I love them so dearly and I will definitely be rereading these books at some point. I still think about them all the time. Highly recommend this series, especially if you want like a bingeable young adult trilogy. This is that trilogy. Then we've got some books that I actually thrifted. So I thrifted City of Fallen Angel and City of Heavenly Fire. I thrifted both of these at my local thrift store when I was reading The Mortal Instruments. And did I love The Mortal Instruments? I mean, it was an interesting experience, but I did really enjoy City of Heavenly Fire. This book, however, she put me through it. And I also thrifted Lord of Shadows in paperback. I found this actually exactly as I was reading Lady Midnight, and I was like, oh, it's meant to be. Love the Dark Artifices trilogy. This book also put me through it, but for different reasons, for more emotional reasons. She put me through The Ringer with this book, but I loved every minute of it except for the ending, because the ending was diabolical. Okay, this is the other part of my young adult book collection. First, actually, I think this might be adult, but I just put it here because I didn't really have any room for the adult. But this is the second book in the Emily Wilde series, Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands. I thrifted this and I just read it recently. Actually, I really enjoyed it. I think the series is so much fun and it's a very particular type of mood that I need to be in when I read this, and I had a lot of fun with this. Then there's the Legend series by Marie Lu. I've actually had the original trilogy with me since I was maybe 12 years old. So they've been with me for a very, very long time, and I have reread them multiple times. They were kind of instrumental in my young adult reading journey. So I kind of keep them for sentimental reasons. So I have Legend, Prodigy, Champion, and I also have the hardcover of Rebel, which I thrifted a long time ago. Yeah, I really enjoyed this series when I was younger. I think if I read them again now, I don't know if I would love them as much, but I will keep them because I've carried them with me for so long. This book, What the River Knows, is a young adult fantasy, and I won this in a Goodreads giveaway. Because I read another book by the same author and I didn't love it, I've been kind of hesitant to pick this up. So if you do recommend it, let me know and maybe I'll try to prioritize it, but haven't read it. I'm kind of scared to read it because I have a feeling I'm not gonna love it. Then we've got the Six of Crows duology. So there's Six of Crows, and I'm not gonna take them out because they're struggling. Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom by Leigh Bardugo. This was also instrumental in my young adult reading journey and arguably the reason why I got into young adult fantasy, because I was like introduced to the world of fantasy through the Six of Crows. And I remember specifically pre-ordering Crooked Kingdom in 2015, I want to say. They will always have a special place in my heart. I don't know if I'll ever reread them again. I've reread them a bunch of times when I was younger. Yeah, I love these characters and this story, and it'll always stay with me. Then we've got Caraval and Legendary. Now I'm going to be super honest, I didn't like these books. I only read them because I wanted to read the Once Upon a Broken Heart series, and I didn't see the hype. I didn't see the vision. It fell flat to me in multiple ways, and I had to kind of push myself to finish it, but it was enjoyable at times. It just wasn't what I expected it to be. I probably will in the future end up unhauling them, and that moves me to the Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. So I have copies of Once Upon a Broken Heart and The Ballad of Never After. I loved the first two books in this series. I devoured The Ballad of Never After in one sitting, practically. I didn't love A Curse for True Love, which is kind of why I don't have a copy of it, but I did thrift these 4 books as well. I just really wanted to have a copy of The Ballad of Never After because I love that book. It was so whimsical and so magical and unputdownable. So yeah, Once Upon a Broken Heart and The Ballad of Never After, really enjoyed those. Then at the end, we've got the Lunar Chronicles series. I haven't reread the series since I was an early teen, I want to say. So I've kept these with me for so long. I might actually reread them because I heard that the entire series is getting like an animated movie, and that's so cool. But this is like a classic to me. Like, I was obsessed with these books. I reread them so many times back in the day, and as you can see, like back then I didn't really care about it either being like all paperback or all hardback because I have like paperback, hardback, but I vividly remember pre-ordering Winter. I even have the novella Stars Above. Like, I was obsessed with this series. So maybe I do need to reread it, but I have mostly just kept these for sentimental value because they meant a lot to me when I was a young teen. Okay, then there's my literary fiction / romance / miscellaneous books. First, there's The Other Black Girl. This is a adult thriller. I thrifted this in Toronto, mostly just because I thought the cover was really cool. I haven't read it yet. If you've read it, let me know if you enjoyed it, and I can see if I can put it up on my priority list. But for now, I haven't read it, and it was one of my thrift finds. I also have Anxious People by Frederick Backman, which is a contemporary adult novel. It is the only Frederick Backman book that I read. I actually didn't really like it from what I remember. I read it a long time ago. Gonna keep it for now. Might end up unhauling it in the future, but I do want to give his books another try because so many people have so many good things to say about his writing. I have a signed copy of R.F. Kuang's Yellowface. I got this when I went to her Yellowface book tour. I really like this book. I couldn't put it down. It's a satire. You probably already heard of it if you've been in the book space at all. Would I recommend it? Yes. I think it was a really interesting read. I have a copy of Crying in H Mart by Michelle Zauner. This was one of those rare cases where I went to the bookstore and I bought a book without reading it because I thought it looked interesting, but this was a very long time ago. This is a memoir, and I read it maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, I want to say. I don't remember too much about it. I just remember that I liked it. I've got Evil Eye by Itafram, which I thrifted in Toronto as well. I haven't read this yet. I really do want to get to it this year, so hopefully I can do that. But this is a adult contemporary novel. This book has a lot of sentimental value to me. Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney, because I received this as a gift from my professor in my 4th year of undergrad, as a gift for graduating and also like TAing, because I was a teaching assistant for her. I actually didn't really love this book, but I will always keep it with me just because she was like the loveliest person, and I'll always remember that she gave me this book, and I'll always think of her when I see this book on my shelf, so it will always have a space on my shelf. I thrifted You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogel, which is a romance novel. This was so much fun. I was literally laughing out loud reading this book. I'm very picky with romance, and this just did it for me. Like, I had so much fun with this book, and it actually made me cry at the end of it. Highly recommend if you enjoy romance. Then we've got all of my Emily Henry books. I have all of her books in paperback. So I have the international version of Book Lovers, which I almost unhauled because I have another copy of Book Lovers, but I'm gonna keep it because I got this when I was traveling. But I have Beach Read, People We Meet on Vacation, Book Lovers, which is probably my favorite of hers, Happy Place, Funny Story, and just recently I picked up Great Big Beautiful Life to complete my collection. I love Emily Henry. If you don't know, I will read anything that she writes, and I've loved all of her books. Some books I've loved more than others, but I do really enjoy her writing. I think she's really good at her craft, and she's fantastic at writing good romance novels. I thrifted Watermoon. This was a book where I thought the concepts were fantastic, but the execution didn't work for me. This is a standalone magical realism book. The vibes of a Ghibli movie. I also received Behind Five Willows as a gift this year by June Her. This is a young adult historical romance. I really liked this. I would recommend it if you enjoy historical romance at all. I thought it was a really introspective read. The romance was really sweet, and it's also Pride and Prejudice inspired, so if you're into that, this is the book for you. Welcome to the Hyunamdong bookshop. Is the book that I got as a souvenir when I was in Malaysia, because I like to buy at least one book whenever I'm traveling. I actually started reading it a couple years ago and I put it on like a soft DNF, like I paused reading it because I wasn't in the mood for it, but I do intend to get back to it. I think this is very much like a cozy type of read, and it's also translated fiction, which I do want to read more. Yeah, hopefully I can get to this year. The Phone Booth at the Edge of the World is another book that I haven't read yet. I think most of the books that I haven't read on my shelf are on this shelf. I believe this is a contemporary novel and it is inspired by a true story. I think this is very much a mood read though. I don't know if I am in the mood for it currently, but I've heard that it has like really beautiful poetic writings. I also have Everything I Never Told You. I read this in high school and I actually bought it because of my English class, because we had a list of books that we could read for our final essay, and this was one of those books. And I remember really liking it. I read it when I was 18, so it's been a really long time, but it's been on my shelf ever since. And whenever I look at it, I just think of 12th grade, for better or worse. But I do remember really liking it. Then Our Missing Hearts by the same author. I don't honestly know if I'll ever get to this. It just doesn't really interest me. If you have read it, let me know. From my understanding, it's like a dystopian adult standalone. I don't know, it's not really calling me. I always intended to read it, so that's why it's still on my shelf. Yeah, let me know your thoughts on this book if you've read it. I'm curious. This is another book that I'm keeping for sentimental reasons. I won an English award in my high school graduation when I graduated from high school, and this was part of the award. They gave this to me on stage and I didn't even know that I was going to receive it. So I think I'll always keep this book just to remember. I did read it a long time ago, but I don't think it was really memorable for me because I don't remember really anything about it, and I don't think I'll ever reread it. The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. I read this book once and I read it when I was maybe 15 or 14. I remember being really moved by it. I remember it being very strong and very moving and very emotional. The Firekeeper's Daughter. This was another exception of me going to the bookstore and seeing a book that looks interesting to me and buying it. I was doing this a lot a few years ago, up until recently when I was like, you need to set some rules for yourself. This is a standalone young adult contemporary novel from what I remember. I hope I'm not wrong. I don't think it's fantasy. I'm pretty sure it's contemporary. I don't remember anything about it. Oh my goodness. But because I bought this with my own money, I am keeping it on my shelf. I remember liking it. I don't remember being blown away by it. And I think that's maybe why I forgot so much. But yeah, this is one of those books that I really can't remember, but I know it was good. Okay, we are at the final shelf. So this is my little Hunger Games bookshelf specifically dedicated to the Hunger Games. I've got both illustrated editions. I've got all the books in a hardcover. These are honestly my prized possessions. If you don't know, the Hunger Games means so much to me as a reader. I honestly wouldn't be the reader that I am today without these books, and I think about them all the time. I've reread the original trilogy a bajillion times and wanted to have like a little section dedicated specifically to the Hunger Games. So that is the final shelf. This is like the top right shelf and I love it. I really like how it looks. My camera's about to die, so I'm going to do a really quick wrap up. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this little bookshelf tour and I hope you have a wonderful day. I'll see you next time.